Hi, everyone. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes for people to join. Welcome to Hacky Hour. Okay. Right, so let's get started. Welcome to Hacky Hour. I am Komal Devjani, a developer advocate with alwaysAI. If you've attended in the past, welcome back. If you're new here, welcome to the Hacky Hour community and the alwaysAI community. Just so you know, we host these Hacky Hours to invite our developer community to check out the various tools available with alwaysAI and our partner companies, and ask questions, provide feedback, or just share what you're working on. Today we have a very special guest, David Tischler from Balina. David, would you like to introduce yourself?
As soon as I find the unmute button. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm David Tischler. I'm a developer advocate at Balena. And I am going to show off a little bit of fleet management and scaling the alwaysAI application.
Sweet. And supporting David, we have Jason Koo from our team. Jason, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jason Koo, a developer advocate at alwaysAI as well. And it's a pleasure, David, for you to come onto our happy hour. I know I've been on yours a couple times, and it's always been a great time.
It's the least I can do, right? You've been on my show twice.
So the intention of these hacky hours, like I mentioned, is for it to be an interactive session. So if you have questions or feedback or anything you want to share at any point in time, feel free to raise your hand, and we'll just take a break and call on you, and you can speak, or you can also write in your questions in the Q&A section, whatever you prefer. So today I'm going to show you how to run a face detector locally on your laptop. And then David T will show you how to deploy alwaysAI applications on multiple edge devices, even if they're in different regions. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. So the first thing you want to do, I've mentioned this in the past, but I'm just going to say it again. You want to make sure you have signed up for alwaysAI. If you haven't done so already, go into alwaysai.co, and here you'll see a login button. If you click here, you will have the opportunity to sign up here. You want to authenticate your account with your email address, and then you can log in. The first thing you'll see when you've logged in is the dashboard. So we have a couple new changes in the dashboard, including the Hello World face detector. So again, if you're new to alwaysAI, you can go ahead and just click View Sample Project. But if you're an existing user, you want to go into projects, and we can go ahead and create a new project for this bit. So we'll call it we'll do an object detection template and call this Hacky Hour face detector. Okay. And let's go ahead and create this project. So from here, we want to view our project. So as you can see, once you're in here, you will have the opportunity to download our alwaysAI CLI for Mac or PC, depending on which operating system you use. And then from here, you can see the default model available to us is the MobileNet SSD. Now, we want to use the face detector, so this is not the model we want to use. So let's go ahead and delete this. Am I sure I want to remove this? Yes. So from here, let's click on New Model, and then let's browse the model catalog and go into Object Detection. And right there, the first one we see, this is the human face detector using the SSD framework. All right, so let's click here. And what we want to do is go ahead and add this into our Hacky Hour face detector. And that's done. From here, let's go back into the dashboard and click on Projects. And there's our project. So from here, what we want to do is just essentially follow the steps that are provided here. So you want to enter the commands into an empty directory in your terminal. So let's pull up the terminal. And I'm going to make this a little bigger so you can see. I'm going to go into my alwaysAI directory. And then from here, let's go into the alwaysAI starter apps. Now, what I want to do here is actually go into the real-time object detector. And I want to copy this command so I can create a project. And go. what's the destination? Your local computer? Yes. Okay. Now that I have that, I want to download the model I want to use. So let's go back to our model. This is the model we're using. Let's copy this and then paste this into the terminal. Let's fetch the model. It's here. And the next thing we want to do is make sure that this model is also specified in our app.py files. So you can go into Atom or any IDE, and this is the object detector over here, the app.py file for the object detector. And I just want to make sure that I have this model added in here and hit save. Now from here, it's essentially the same steps you see on your projects. You want to go into the terminal, AAI app install, and then AAI app start. Okay, looks like it's working. Let's copy this into the streamer and paste this into our browser. And as you can see, this can identify my face. Now you can use the method I showed you by creating a new project, or if you're a new user, just go into the dashboard, hit View Sample Project, and it'll show you the exact same project, and you can follow the same steps. All right, and I'm going to stop sharing here. Does anyone have any questions about how to run the face detector? Okay, Frank, hi, welcome from Peru. All right, if there's no other questions, I'm going to hand it over to David to show you how you can deploy an alwaysAI application on multiple edge devices. David?
There's that pesky unmute button again. Thanks, Komal. That intro was actually perfect. I was not aware you were going to deploy in that particular manner. And what you actually did right there was the getting started application workflow, which is the perfect segue to then what I'm going to show off. So let me do a quick screen share on mine as well. Share. Oh, the host has disabled screen sharing. Can you go ahead and approve me to share?
Sure. All right, go ahead.
All right, let's try that now. All right, it might take a moment, but has that come through?
Yep, looks good.
All right, perfect. So, and then one more thing I need to do just very quickly is try to expand that just a bit. I lost my view of chat for the moment, but that's all right. We will make it work. All right, so as mentioned, I'm from Balena, and Balena is all about IoT fleet management. For those of you who have heard of Balena before, you might be familiar with Etcher, which is our SD card or USB stick flashing utility. And that's great, but that's open source. So the way that we actually go ahead and pay the bills is by this fleet management platform. And allows you to essentially command and control, manage and maintain your IoT devices, no matter where they are located. So let me do one quick switch over of cameras. You can see I have a whole bunch of Raspberry Pis on my desk, and that's all well and good when you're prototyping here on your desk and you have access to these devices. But once you go to deploy IoT devices out into the field and they're no longer readily accessible, you need to have a way to continue to manage and maintain them. So that's what the Bolina Cloud platform is all about. Let me switch that back now. And Komal, you already just showed off the alwaysAI, the Getting Started app workflow. So I actually did the same thing, and you can see in my terminal here, let me go up a directory. This one happens to be the age and gender classifier. I did the same thing that you did, which was pull down the Getting Started apps. But then from there, what I have done is created a Docker container around that. I've created a Docker compose file, which is pretty basic, to be perfectly honest, but we do need to mount our devices or give access to devices to the Pi. And I've dropped the application into a subfolder here that I just labeled as AAI. I pushed this up to GitHub, so it's already on GitHub. So we actually really don't even need the command line at this point because, and Komal or Jason, if you can drop this into chat, since I have now lost my chat window, this URL here, I think I shared it over to you at some point, Komal. Otherwise, I'll have to figure out. Well, wait a minute. Let's see here. More chat. Oh, there it is. I did find it. So we can grab that URL and place this over here for everyone. All right. So, like I said, I've pushed this up. Now, in the repo, I added this big blue button, deploy with Bolina. And that button contains a little bit of magic, actually. When you click it, what will happen is it will take you to Balina Cloud. You'll either be prompted to create an account, log into your account, or in my particular case, I'm already logged in. I'm going to go ahead and create an application. We have two concepts, applications and devices. I'm going to give the application a name. We start off, actually, let's call it just Hacky Hour. And I'm going to use a Raspberry Pi 4. So I'm going to create and deploy. We start off by applications first, and then you add devices to an application. So we're going to let that go for a moment. And what it's going to do is grab everything that is in that GitHub repo and start building in the background, in the cloud, that that set of services. So that Docker file that we took a look at, that Docker compose is now running. You can see it up here, building release. So in the meantime, while that's running, it's time to add a device. So here what we're going to do is click the add device button. It defaults to the Pi 4, and I am going to put it on to development mode just in case things go awry and we need to do some live troubleshooting. And you also choose whether you want Ethernet only or Wi-Fi plus Ethernet. I don't have an Ethernet cable that will reach my router, so I will choose Wi-Fi, and I made a temporary network point just in case of a bad copy paste. But let's see here. Oh, got it in. All right, and I'm going to download Balina Os. What that is doing is actually creating an OS from scratch. So most people are familiar with Raspbian, and Raspbian is great for many things, but we actually craft our own and spin our own OS. It's based on Yocto, and it's got some additional fault tolerance, and it's got dual root partitions, root A and root B, so that, you know, if things go haywire out in the field, you can roll your devices back. So there's some safety measures in place. Only minimal set of packages are installed. Again, reduce your footprint, your potential, you know, threat vectors. Okay, so we've got it downloaded. I need to flash it. I need to burn the SD card. Have Etcher already running. Let's flash the file. And while this flashes, it's going to take a moment. So let me just find, there it is, Hacky Hour. And select a target. I've already got it in my laptop. and hit flash. So this is probably a good point to take a pause and see if we have any questions.
There's actually one question, David.
Okay.
M has asked, will this work on a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus?
This particular demo will not. This particular one is geared towards the Pi 4 because it has a USB 3 port, which the Movidius makes use of. In fact, let me switch my camera back now because that's just about done flashing. Jason, you might be able to chime in here. Can you use the CPU acceleration, which is not really acceleration, but the CPU inferencing on a Pi 3? Do you know?
3B, yeah, a 3B plus will work, but it's obviously a lot slower than the 4.
Okay, so this particular repo, exactly as it is, and I see I need to open that in a new tab is what I should have done. But that repo is written for the Movidius stick. So it will not, as it stands, work on a Pi 3. But with some adaptation, yeah, it might be okay there running on the CPU. So let's power this thing up. And it's going to boot. I'm going to attach a Movidius. I'm going to attach a USB webcam. And
so David, sorry, before we
go ahead.
Forward, we actually have lots of device questions now.
No problem.
Is the Raspberry Pi 4 the only device supported? Can you work on a Jetson Nano, for example?
Yeah, it absolutely can. And that comes back around more towards the alwaysAI tooling, which supports a Jetson Nano and CUDA acceleration, or Intel Movidius NCS stick acceleration, or you guys will need to correct me. I think there's actually Tensor RT acceleration, if I remember seeing that as well, or CPU acceleration. So the point is this particular GitHub repo is designed for a Pi 4 and an NCS. You could absolutely alter the Python, the app.py. Let's open up a new tab and go back to that repo. To instead work on a Jetson Nano. Just that this particular example will not out of the box run on it.
Got it. So, okay, so you just need to make some changes to the app.py files to support the hardware.
Yeah. Exactly.
Again, do you think it can work on a VirtualBox VM?
Yeah, yes, it can.
Yeah, similarly, you would need to switch it to CPU, I would imagine, right? Jason, is that valid?
So yeah, we were talking about alwaysAI and Balena on a VM or just AI? So yeah, I think probably a CPU could run both, but you can definitely use alwaysAI with a VM.
Okay.
Yeah, so here's my Python. This is what I pushed and was building in the background, but you can see right here that I have highlighted. It's DNN_OpenVino. So again, you can alter this to make use of DNN_CUDA, and then you'd be able to run it, on the Jetson Nano. But as it exists, it is for a Pi 4 with Movidius. Okay.
Then I think this next question is for Jason. Are there any limitations or issues using alwaysAI instead of a default distro using Balina Os?
Well, if you want to do fleet management, it's going to be easier just to download the Balina Os from the dashboard. But I mean, you could run everything, with an alwaysAI build on top, and then we've got a blog actually on the instructions on how you could connect it to a Balina Os instance.
Okay. Are you able to post the link to that blog in chat?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, thanks.
So while we've been chatting, I noticed that my device powered up and came online. And you can see now in the device details, it got a default name. We can name it something else. Hacky Hour -1. Oops, need an R there. And it is pulling down the containers that were built in the background. So that AAI container got built by the Balena Cloud Builder. The device powered up, checked in, and said, hey, what am I supposed to do? And Balena Cloud then sent down, or is sending down as we speak, that workload. And it's a sizable container. And I'm also live streaming. So this might take some time for this download to complete, but we're getting there. That's okay though. We've got some more talking points anyway. That file that I flashed, I don't know if I can do it while also, let's try again. But that file that I downloaded, which was the OS, I can flash over and over and over and plug in to more and more, in this particular case, Raspberry Pis, but could be other types of devices. We support BeagleBones. We do support Jetson Nanos, some other enterprise types of devices. Let me come back onto my camera. You know, kind of as I said at the beginning, it's easy to hack on and prototype on these Raspberry Pis because they're cheap and they're readily available. For going out to deployment, I would actually say, you know, you really want to consider more reliable, more industrial strength hardware. You really don't want to attach a Raspberry Pi to the side of an oil rig. I promise it's not going to end well. You know, if you're going to put it on a rooftop in a smart city and direct sunlight all day long, it will die. The SD card will die. I guarantee it. So the point though is that for your prototyping, here they are on my desk, easy enough. But with that out of the way, so what I was going to attempt to do, but may not actually work, I don't know if I've said my prayer to the demo gods appropriately, was flash and bring up a second device as well. And let me scroll back up and come over to applications. And we called that Hacky Hour. There it is. And so we have one device. It must have actually just completed. Looks like the green LED turned out. So it's online. And it should be starting up. Uh-oh, NCS not found. Hold on a minute. May need to do a reboot on it. We'll see. We'll see. We'll give it a minute. But that's okay. So what I was hoping to do was add a second device, although my SD card does not want to cooperate. But anyways, the point then is this. I can now, as a fleet manager and a fleet owner, provision as many of these as needed. Let's say I have field offices all around the country. I can build them, I can drop them in the mail, I can send them out to my field offices. Let's say I run a manufacturing or distribution warehouse. I remember last week, Steve, I think it might have been you, that was showing off a demo of individuals picking and placing parts out of a bin. You know, again, you could theoretically have a device and a camera at every employee's workstation. I don't know, you might get into some you know, some privacy concerns, but I'm sure, you know, if handled appropriately, you can imagine how lots and lots of devices plus cameras in bulk are going to become unwieldy to manage if you don't have that control plane. So, so with that said, Jason, you're in the greater San Diego area, right?
Yep, that is
If I
correct.
drop one of these in the mail, it is not going to reach you in the next hour, I don't believe.
No.
So I had you pre-provision one that I think you've got up and running. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. So I'm going to add you to this application here and see if we can find your device. So we have this feature called Members, where I can invite a collaborator. And I'm going to invite you, which I think this is your username. Now on your Balena Cloud dashboard, you may need to refresh. Might take a moment.
It showed up almost right away.
Did it really? All
Yeah.
right. Excellent. You now have access to my application called Hacky Hour. If you put a check mark next to your device, which I think yours was in a different application called Object Detector or something similar. But if you put a check mark next to it, over on yours I'm talking about.
Right.
And in the Actions drop down, go to Move Device.
Ooh.
It should allow you to move it to a different application. And should be able to move it into my Hacky Hour. And there it comes, Blue Brook. All right, perfect. So we'll give yours a minute to check in, ask for its workload, download the container, and start running. While we're doing that, I now have access to it, which means I've got, oh, it's online already. I think because you had these containers already preloaded. So I can now see that your device is in here. It's online. I see your IP address is a 192.168.22. Perfect. So everything looks good. And I'm going to actually reboot mine just in case. Now, while mine is rebooting, let's do this. Let's actually have your, let me bring my camera back to me. All right, if you don't mind, I'm going to stop my screen share. And can you share yours, Jason?
Yep, let me bring it up.
Yep, no problem.
Want the camera output, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, the camera output would be what I'd want to see running. But in the meantime, I have got, there we go. All right. So your device, 192.168.1.22, has that workload downloaded and running. And your detection is working pretty good. Dining room table, bottle, yeah. Looks like yours is good. So do you have a tab open for your Balena Cloud dashboard as well?
I do.
All right, so you can see the same thing that I can see. And if you go to location on the left at the bottom button, you will see your device in San Diego. And if you go back to Phoenix, you'll see mine on the map also. So the point is, we've now deployed object detection in 2 states from the click of that big blue button. I didn't write any code. I didn't do any pushes. I just clicked the button. I had to do that earlier today because I knew that mailing a Pi was not going to work in the next 30 minutes exactly. So, Komal, if you had followed along, we could have built yours up there in the LA area, I think.
Yeah, at the end of the continent.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, so there you have it. Let me see. Let me come back. Did mine come back online? Let's do this. I actually pre-provisioned one earlier just to be able to show as well. Let me move it in. Let's see. Hacky Hour. So this one, Blue Sun, is now in Hacky Hour also. So my Hacky Hour -1 did come back up. It is running. Aha, good. Let's grab that. I'm gonna do a screen share back on mine, Jason, if you don't mind. Let me come back over, share the desktop, share. And in a moment, once that comes through, you should see back to mine. I just moved in a third device as well that I provisioned earlier this morning in case disaster struck, but that's okay. So this is the one that you saw me build. And this has an IP address of 192.168.0.91. Let's see. Port 5000. Is that me? That is me from a different angle. All right. Let's try my elephant on a stick. Will that work? No, not gonna work. Oh, wrong camera. There it is. I see dog flying by. Thinks my elephant is a dog, but can you see that? Is it coming through?
Yep.
All right. So that's the one that we just built and deployed, running live. All right. So
David,
yep.
actually, before you continue forward, I just want to say, Marty, the CEO of alwaysAI, just slacked me saying how cool that was. That was so cool. Well, we do have a question for you.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's about, I think, it for me anyway. So let's field some questions.
Okay, sweet. So this one's from Frank, and he's asking, what is the best operating system for the Raspberry Pi? And he says that, I ask you this because Raspbian doesn't work really well for watching videos in 1080p. But when I looked for information, I found that Ubuntu Mate is the best option. What is your opinion on that?
Well, I mean, that is more of a use case question, and that's less related to IoT or AI. If you're talking about watching video and daily driver usage, I would actually push back and argue that Raspbian is the best option because it is put out by the foundation. It's pretty turnkey. It's easy to use out of the box. It is designed for novices to be able to get up and running. GPIO pins work. Everything just works. The thing about the Pi 4 is it's not a powerful device, right? It's not the same thing as a MacBook Pro or, you know, a Core i7 or any other, you know, powerful kind of computer. So the point is it may never be able to play 1080p YouTube. I don't know. I haven't tried. I live in the IoT world, but so the point is I would say Raspbian as a desktop and casual user is probably the best OS for that intended purpose, but certainly not in the IoT world.
Nice. Okay, the next question is, how can I format the Bolina cloud image into the virtual OS?
All right, that's a little, I might need a little clarification on that one. Format the Bolina, I mean, I guess spin up, I guess the question is really more about spin up a, like a virtual machine running Balena. I was just going to say, it looks like we got a link to the blog article, No Hardware Use VirtualBox. That guide right there that just came in has the information on the steps to follow. You would want to install VirtualBox, create a VM, add a storage medium, which is the virtual hard drive, and then mount the OS.
Okay.
Boot it up and go through the install routine. And that guide has everything right there.
Okay. I've also given M the permission to speak about this question. M, do you want to elaborate on your question?
Yep.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So it will be better if I format the image onto the memory of the Raspberry Pi.
I'm sorry, could you repeat it one more time? I didn't quite hear and it was on my side, sorry.
Oh, so it's mean I have to format the image into the SD card of the Raspberry Pi. It will be better.
Well, if you're going to flash an SD card and use a Raspberry Pi, I mean, that is definitely what I would consider the easiest method. If the question that you originally asked is how to do it in a virtual machine, then the link that, I don't know if it's Sia or Sia has provided, the balena.io/blog/no hardware use VirtualBox article will walk you through it. So it's really an either or scenario of use a Pi or use a VirtualBox.
Oh, so it's mean I have to format the image into the USB.
Into USB. I'm not entirely following. Like mount a USB device into the VM?
No, into the. Sorry.
It seems to say, M, correct me if I'm wrong. Feel free to just elaborate. But are you saying that you want to flash an SD card from a VM?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Flash an SD card from a VM. I mean, you'd have to
Not
be able
the
to.
VM. Not the VM. I'm already have the operating system into the Raspberry Pi operating system into SD card. I already flashed it. I flashed the operating system.
Okay, so you flashed it onto an SD card?
So it means I can flash the image into the USB.
So I definitely apologize. I'm not following. If you want to follow up with me offline, you're certainly welcome to shoot me an email. Maybe if you send me some screenshots, I can kind of walk you through it.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure what you're looking at or attempting to do. So yeah, I can take it offline with you and help you get it up and running. No problem.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks. Okay, right. There's another question from David. After the containers are deployed, is there ongoing monitoring of devices? Like, would you get notifications if one of the Pis was suddenly unplugged?
Out of the box, no, it is not included. But with that said, I would recommend using a monitoring or logging service like Datadog or NetData, or there's some similar ones out there as well. I actually have Datadog running in a container in a different application. We could actually come over here, and if we scroll down, I have apps for days. This is how you do segmentation and your workload management, by the way, is isolating what types of containers are running on what devices, or some customers split it out geographically. So you'll have, you know, Northeast, Southeast, and sort of break it out that way, or honestly by country as well. A lot of customers have global fleets. But this one here, Datadog Monitor, happens to be running a Datadog agent that is checking in and pumping data over to them. And then let me see if I can grab a quick, let's see here. This may not work. David W. putting me on the spot, go figure. Especially when I didn't say my prayer to the demo gods. Let's see. If that comes into view, you should be able to see some logging setup over here that I've got on a device. You know, so it's not natively built in. We would recommend using a third party.
Yeah, to that point, actually, Sia just mentioned that you can use an MQTT or with LWT to check the health as well.
Yeah, yep.
Thanks, Sia. Okay. Are there any additional questions? Oh. Oh, it's AB. Hi, AB. He just joined as a different name this time.
Yep.
Okay. All right, one from Emmanuel. Are the applications you have deployed sharing the same IP address?
No. So these applications, let me see here. This one here is with me in Phoenix on a 192.168.0.91 address. The second device on my desk was, which one? This one right here. Actually, we can see over here 192.168.0.162. But I see that Jason's network is a 192.168.1.22. Now I'll show off a different feature here. Jason, I might need a little help figuring out how to but proxy a port from 5,000 over to 80. I know I've seen Eric do this as part of the Docker Compose file, and we don't have to do it right now because things could take a turn for the worse. But what you can do, another feature here in Balena Cloud, is public device URL. And I can toggle that on, and it will then create an endpoint. Now, this is port 80, which I know is not running. alwaysAI is running on port 5000, but this URL, I might need to move this down a little bit so I can see there, is the device UID .balena-devices.com. And that's a publicly accessible URL. So anyone can hit that right now. You're not going to get anything because there's nothing running on port 80. But Jason, we may need to have a brainstorming session. I'm fairly certain, especially with something like, why can't I think of the name of it now? Nginx, or some kind of a similar container that we could port forward 5,000 back to 80. Or Steve, unless you know it. But so the point is, though, is that
I leave that to Eric.
Yeah. I know I've seen Eric.
Eric does his magic.
I know he's got these tricks. I had to use one of his tricks. Yeah, Node.js with HTTP server on 80. Thank you, AB. So yeah, we need to investigate that to make it a publicly accessible. Of course, in that case, now you've got yourself a publicly accessible webcam, so you want to be careful. Might be some privacy issues there as well. But the point is you can expose your device. Yes.
Eric just said you might be able to hack the streamer port. Smiley face.
Well, we'll do that when we're not live. But yeah. So
Okay,
yeah,
should we
any
look
others?
Should
Why
we
do
look
I
at
think you
Leo's
guys might do
question?
that right after this, huh?
Okay, let's take a look at Leo's question. He said, what about supporting full-blown PC hardware with your system and a version of Balina OS for performance and multiple camera support on one device?
So, interestingly enough, this is something I have begun to experiment with, and Eric is watching, so he knows the bit of struggle I have had thus far. But we do support x86 devices, and I have one here, which is an Atom device. An Atom is a low-power x86 processor. In particular, because of the fact that IoT is, typically again going to be edge devices. I look for things, this just wearing my Balena hat, that are low power consumption. This processor is only a couple of watts SDP or TDP, thermal design. It's a small little board, and it runs Bolina. I do not have it running alwaysAI quite yet, but we'll get there. Now, with that said, right here is the trick. We support a generic x86 underscore 64-bit platform. So you can run it on a NUC or anything that just has a typical UEFI platform. So yeah, you can actually run Balina OS, even though it's totally designed for small constrained systems, on a big system. The multiple camera setup would need some work. I think I had seen a repo that Eric had hacked together recently about multiple streams. I haven't dove into that one yet. Jason, I don't know if you've done any multi-camera to single device work at all, have you?
No, but I think Lila has.
Gotcha. So we've, it is out there. I personally have not tiptoed into it yet. But in theory, that should absolutely work, yes.
Sweet.
APIs would definitely support it on the alwaysAI side. So just number your webcams. You can even start multiple applications if you want to.
Yeah.
You don't have to pull through it. So that would work. Just have to know your webcam number coming in.
Yep.
Yeah, and Eric just shared the repo for the multi-camera streams to a single device. Oh, perfect. Okay, and AB actually has a question, so we're gonna give him the chance to speak.
Yep.
AB?
Hello, can you hear me?
Sorry,
Yep.
AB.
So
That was my fault.
You were there for a second.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, sure can.
Hey, yeah, hi. It was a nice demo, David. A quick question I had. What is behind that button which you press to deploy the full thing? So how did you make what's the story behind that?
The story behind the button.
So
Where
somebody
is
should
it?
have written that
Yeah.
button, right?
Yeah, so the button is a trigger, okay? Really, the older methodology that, and I shouldn't say older, it is still totally valid and works fine. This methodology right here, if you use the Balena CLI, Balena has some tooling available that you run locally. You install, my VM is asleep or awake, it doesn't matter, but you install the Balena CLI, just like alwaysAI had the CLI that Komal showed in the very beginning of the hour. So with the Balena CLI, you can do a Balena push to the name of the application. In this case, we called it Hacky Hour, but you do, I skipped a step, sorry. You do a git clone on a repo. Once you have a local copy of that repo, then change into that directory and do a Balina push of that application name. That sends your local directory structure, Docker Compose, Docker file, up to our cloud servers to be built. And then any device that checks in will grab that application and download those containers. The deploy with Balina button essentially is just an API trigger for those same steps. It started the build in the cloud the same way that this Balina push would have done it from here. There's one other feature that we should probably make mention of, although I fear it might open a can of worms, but the point of containerized deployments and remote, remote devices is that here's Jason's, right? Okay, I'm sitting in Phoenix. We already saw that. I have a terminal on his device, no matter where it is, so long as it has connectivity. Let's see what kind of an SD card he used. 26 gigs free, so a 32 gig SD card. So I have root access to that host OS running on it. I can also interact with and troubleshoot the containers if there were a problem. I can make that bigger so you can see a little bit better. So you have terminal on the device itself. So I don't know if you can see any blinking lights or not over there, Jason, probably not. But the point is I'm on your device. Now, I can also push updates to the entire fleet. So if I were to, let's see if this will come back up. Make a change. Okay, I used the big blue magical button on that original deployment, but if I were to make a change to my code, and actually, I guess we're running out of time. Maybe it's a good time as any to nuke something. Well, wait a minute, where's the streamer port? Oh, it's not in here, is it? I was gonna say, let's find it. But anyways, if I make a change, I write new code, or quite honestly, in the AI world, right, your model is better. You've got improvements to your inferencing, or you want to change, you were looking for grizzly bears, now you wanna look for black bears. What you do then in that case is, after your local changes are made, Balina push Hacky Hour. And it will trigger the cloud build the same way that the blue button did, build the containers, and push that to the entire fleet, no matter where they are. So that's really the magic of using something like Balina to be able to intervene with individual nodes that are out in the wild, but also update them out in the wild. So that's gonna get going, and I think my VM is probably going to kill my machine. So I want to actually minimize it and get it out of the way. But so yeah, we're at the top of the hour. We won't make it before this finishes. But the point is now you can start pushing containers literally around the world. So again, in the AI world, the ability to update that is extremely important. Every change that every improvement that alwaysAI makes, you just push it out. You got to be conscious of your bandwidth if you're on constrained networks. If you've got a camera out in the wild on a 2G connection, there's a nice feature in Bolina about delta downloads where it only downloads the differential of what has changed. You don't have to pull down the 2 gigs worth of container every single time. But anyways, you start to imagine how 10 devices, 50 devices, 100 devices, the ability to manipulate that is important.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks. So that Docker container, in case that so Docker full container definitely has different components, right? So the components which haven't changed will not get downloaded, right? You're saying?
Correct. If it has not changed, it will not be downloaded. It's a toggle switch. You can turn your deltas on or off. I would advise, at least in the IoT use case, to leave the deltas on so you don't pay for expensive bandwidth on devices in the middle of nowhere. But for other use cases, if it doesn't matter, then yeah, you could download the whole container every time. Yeah.
Last question, sorry, Komal. It's getting a little interesting. So in your Balina cloud, if your one of the device on the field gets compromised, how do you handle that situation?
Well, so, and Komal, I'm looking at the clock, I promise. No, that's okay. So that comes back around full circle to why I was saying, perhaps Raspberry Pis and these kinds of devices, Jetson Nanos as well, are great to hack on and prototype with. But when you go to deploy in bulk by the hundreds, and these things are going to be in places that you no longer have physical control over, you need to be conscious of the blast radius, the security footprint, the profile. So one of the things that Balina Os does, you saw me at one point toggle developer versus production mode. Production mode disables SSH and serial access. It actually turns off the UART on the Pi, or whatever the device type is. So if somebody takes physical possession of your device, they cannot actually access the console. Now, again, if they have the physical device, they could remove the SD card. So a best practice, let this be just a general lesson learned, is that you probably want to use a device that has eMMC on it and flash your OS to eMMC. You would need some pretty sophisticated tooling to desolder the eMMC, attach it to some sort of a mount or carrier, and then begin to read the data and content that is on it. So that's one best practice for truly sensitive information. Alternatively, if you are going to be using SD cards, like I said earlier, they fail. I guarantee you that they do fail out in the field. So keep that in mind. But, if it's in this scenario, a Pi, and you're not going to be able to properly secure at least someone walking away with the thing, if it's in like some sort of a lockbox that they cannot physically access the SD card, maybe that is at least one compromise to improve security. I don't know. You do have to think about that though. Yeah.
AB, do you have any additional questions?
No, thank you. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, so there is one more question, but I'm not sure, David, if you want to take this offline or if you want to answer it live.
So I'm fine. I don't have anything else booked. I'm just want to be cognizant of your time and your audience. And if you can go over a few minutes, I can go over a few minutes.
Yeah, it's
David,
totally fine.
We're fine. We never have a hard stop.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I didn't. Yeah, I didn't.
We're okay
I didn't.
if you want.
Then I'm good. Then fire away then.
Yeah.
If the people are interested, we want to give them the information.
Cool. Go for it. What's next?
Okay, so this one's from Frank, and it seems he's having some trouble with connecting to his Raspberry Pi, and he's like, I don't know what I must do. Help me, please.
Where is it, Frank? I don't see it. Hold on. Is it in? Oh, I made a mistake because I tried to expand the GPU memory until 896 megs. All right. Well, that's only going to leave you 100 megs or so for the OS. So that's not gonna work. When I run the operating system Raspbian, it does not work. Honestly, Frank, I don't know that you're going to be able to recover that one. If you set the GPU to 896 megs, I suspect that thing is not going to boot back up, and you may need to just reflash and start over. Now, if you have data on that SD card that you absolutely positively cannot live without, then I would go get an SD card to USB adapter, something like this, where you just stick the SD card into it and attach it to the laptop, or some laptops have SD card readers built in. But the point is I would try to just mount the SD card and copy paste any files that you need, but I'm not sure you are going to get that thing into a usable condition in its current state. And honestly, you'd save yourself a lot of time just reflashing it. So sort of depends on how critical the data is on that thing.
Yeah, and I think it's cool. Like a lot of other community members have provided so many like suggestions. Reinstall the OS.
Yeah, that's the, I mean, that is honestly the quick fix. But certainly, taken into account. Yeah.
So it would auto mount. Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be a Linux partition. You'd have to have some tooling in place to be able to read the contents of it. But yeah, the short answer is reinstall.
Well, Frank, I hope that that was helpful.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions? Speak now or wait till next Thursday, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't see any questions coming through. Okay, so there's one from Renan. What other technology I could use to create an embedded BI dashboard?
An embedded BI dashboard. Jason, I will need to pick your brain on this one a little bit. I don't know a whole lot about BI. It's a little bit broad, a dashboard like maybe like Grafana would something, I mean, because we have projects over in the Balena world for, again, being an IoT company, we have a lot of sensor projects that run Grafana dashboards.
Yeah, that's what AB is suggesting, Grafana.
Yeah. Let me find, let's see here.
Does Tableau make a light version?
Yeah, I don't.
It doesn't look like it.
I wonder if I have Balina Sense up and running. No, I don't. I had to. So this repo here is a project based on a Pi plus Influx, Grafana, and Telegraph, and it's turnkey out of the box, designed for either a Sense hat or a BME 680. And the same workflow applies. You do a git clone and then a Balena push, or you click the magical blue button right there, and it will start the build. You would need to just flash the SD card and power it up. And I thought we had some screenshots in, well, just that little one right there, but it comes with a pretty thorough dashboard for temperature, humidity, air pressure, particulates, etc. But yeah, like that would be the only thing I can think of from an embedded BI. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Microsoft Dynamics or Tableau or any of those, they're not really designed for the IoT world. They're certainly hogs.
Okay, Renan, I hope that was helpful. But AB also included a link in the, oh, he just said thanks. But AB also included a link for Pi My Life Up, which has some info on the Raspberry Pi and Grafana. So hopefully that helps. Last go. Any other questions? Okay, all right. David, I think you're off the hook now.
All right, I survived.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks again for joining Hacky Hour this week. It was awesome to have you, David, and it was amazing to have such a great community of developers who like to help each other out and like provide solutions. So really amazing to see. Next week, join us for a session on Docker Demystified. So if you want to learn about Docker and how it works with alwaysAI, don't forget to join us next week, Thursday at 2 p.m. And thanks for joining, and I'll see you guys next week.